I think we will go ahead and kick off the webinar for today. I'd like to thank all of the attendees, all of our esteemed panelists who are joining us from around the world today, which is great. So I think several of you have probably attended prior webinars under the umbrella of this project. It's an adaptation fund project called Resilient Water Solutions Against Climate Change in Jordan and Lebanon. The lead implementing entity is UN Habitat, and the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia based in Beirut provides support in terms of knowledge management and communication. And under that umbrella, we've been hosting a series of webinars on topics that are related to urban water and climate resilience in the Arab region. And today we're very excited to take part in this session that's focused on project preparation facilities for promoting city access to climate finance. So to start, I'm actually going to welcome my colleague from UN Habitat, Hossein Mohsen, who is the regional project coordinator. Hossein, would you like to say a few words of welcome?
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much for your effort coordinating this and making this a reality. And thank you all for being with us. Welcome to the Urban Water and Climate Resilience Community of Practice 4th webinar. This is the 4th one that we achieved in this project, which is very great. We are very delighted to have you joining us also today to discuss a very important topic, which is climate finance for cities, and specifically focusing on project preparation facilities. So this topic is critical around the world for cities because many of the cities in the world strive to enhance their resilience against climate change impacts. On the other hand, and as you might know, urban areas are responsible for over 70% of global greenhouse gases, according to World Bank assessments. So this makes climate finance initiatives critical for achieving global climate goals as well. So this is the rationale why we are doing this webinar today with you all, and we hope that this webinar will provide valuable insights and practical strategies to leverage climate finance and build resilience in urban environment in general. Let's hope that this will create more engagement and maybe future projects, hopefully, and this will lead for sustainable future for cities and that we withstand the impacts of climate change. By that, I conclude, and I would not forget to thank the distinguished speakers that we have today, very high caliber, and I hope that we all benefit from their presence with us. And thank you again for being with us. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Hossein. Yes, to your point, we know that the Arab region is highly vulnerable to climate change, and the adverse effects of climate change are being felt, particularly in urban communities and across sectors. Regional climate models for the region show that average annual temperature could increase by up to almost 5 degrees Celsius before the end of the century. And cities in the Arab region in particular are facing a wide variety of challenges, including ailing infrastructure, water scarcity, conflict, influxes of displaced persons from neighboring countries and regions. And over the past decade, relative to the financing that's required to implement the NDCs of 11 Arab countries who costed their needs as part of the NDCs, the amount of financing received was less than 6% of what's actually needed for the coming decade. So we know that there is a definite need for increased climate finance, and that many of the climate-related challenges are in the urban environment. So we're really hoping, and we know that this session will provide great practical tips on how we can make this connection between the real needs that we see in the field, preparing projects, costing out those needs, and being able to actually access the funds. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome our first panelist, John Michael LaSalle. He's a senior program associate at the Climate Policy Initiative based in Washington, D.C., where he leads the city's Climate Finance Leadership Alliance project preparation workstream, including the PPF Connector program, which supports partnerships and project matchmaking for CCFLA members. Prior to CPI, John Michael worked as an urban disaster risk consultant at the World Bank, and an architect in Egypt and the US. He holds a master's degree in city planning from the University of Pennsylvania and a bachelor's degree in international development from Calvin University. Oh, and one last thing before I turn it over to John Michael, there is a simultaneous interpretation available. So you'll see that as one of the menu options at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And you can click in there and choose to listen to the presentations in either Arabic or English. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And now I will leave it to John Michael. Melissa, if you could stop sharing your screen so that John Michael can click in with his. Thanks. Sorry.
Thank you, Sarah, and I'm very happy to be here today with you all. Good morning and good afternoon. I will share a little bit of background about project preparation facilities, the work that we do with them, and how to think about approaching a PPF to support one of your projects. So CCFLA, the City's Climate Finance Leadership Alliance, is a network of over 80 organizations worldwide focused on getting financing for climate action to the city level. That brings together city networks, financial institutions, national governments, and what we call the enablers, which are NGOs, UN agencies, research centers, everyone who's not providing finance or seeking finance for projects, but enables the ecosystem. And that includes project preparation facilities. Our PPF Connector program works as a one-stop shop for these facilities to help them connect at the project level to make sure that projects get all the support they need to become investment ready and secure financing for implementation, as well as supporting partnerships and creating information resources to help the ecosystem work more efficiently and in a more integrated fashion. And I'll end my presentation by pointing out one of the resources available to cities with a link and a QR code so you can find it directly. I want to take a minute to talk about what project preparation is and what the stages are that a project needs to go through in order to reach the point of investment readiness or bankability, where you can secure the financing needed for implementation. So really, before the preparation process starts, there is needs to be some kind of planning or strategy process that identifies what projects are needed, but doesn't do any work to define and elaborate those projects. Then early stage preparation begins by defining that scope and concept for a project, which then moves to a pre-feasibility study phase where different options to meet the project goals are evaluated and the preferred option is identified. Then the feasibility stage will develop the technical, financial, environmental, social, and economic details of that project at a greater level to get to the point where you can determine it's technically feasible, begin to understand what regulations and permitting is required, what a detailed cost estimate, which then allows you to move on to structuring and transactions, where you define the management structure, the financing structure, whether there will be a private partner, if it will be publicly financed, what the financing instruments that are appropriate for that project are, and then actually executing the transactions to receive the money needed to begin construction and then finally operations for the project. And this is a process that's focused on projects where there's a capital expenditure to build some kind of physical infrastructure, but often projects that are a program or a set of activities, something like an early warning system, go through a similar process, but this can look a little bit different depending on each sector, the type of project, and the institutional environment that the project is being developed in. Project preparation facilities support cities and other project sponsors to prepare their projects by serving as this missing link between the planning process, where a city identifies its priorities and needs, and the discussions with the financial institutions or governments that will fund or finance the project. They can also serve to enhance collaboration by bringing together local authorities, private project developers, financiers, and city networks that have different expertise and different experiences. And beyond the project level support they can provide, often by procuring consultants who can do the technical studies, they also could help cities build their financial and technical capacity through capacity development programs, peer-to-peer learning between cities, to enable cities to better access finance for their climate projects in the future. But each PPF has a specific focus, a specific mandate. So there are certain considerations when thinking about identifying a PPF to apply to for support. Most PPFs will have an application window with specific eligibility criteria. And some of those key criteria at the project level are the sector of the project. Some will look at any project that relates to urban sustainability and resilience, but others are specific to transportation or water or energy. Another is the project stage. As I mentioned, each project goes through a sequence of stages from concept development all the way through to structuring and transactions. And most PPFs will not provide support for each of those stages. So some will have requirements that a pre-feasibility study will already be completed, or they will only support the concept and pre-feasibility stages. So identifying where your project is at in the process to make sure that it's applying for PPFs that provide the right stage of support is important. Another criteria, particularly at the later stage where a project is more developed, is the investment size. Some PPFs will have a minimum or a maximum project size. And so having at least an initial cost estimate to know if you fit within the window of investment sizes that PPF is designed to support is also important. And the last project consideration is really the financing and governance model. Since projects can be developed and financed through a municipal budget, through a national government program with international development finance institutions, or through private financing, whether that's a fully private project the city is supporting, or a PPP where there's a concession or some other private public arrangement. Some PPFs have specific mandates to support PPPs, to support only publicly financed projects. So having an idea of the types of financing and governance models that could be appropriate for your project is also important to identify a suitable PPF. There are also considerations around the type of project sponsor. In our work, we focus on PPFs that support municipalities, but there are also PPFs that will only work with national government projects or only projects that have a private company developing them. And some require that you have an endorsement from the national government or from a multilateral development bank. And on that last one, particularly for facilities that are tied to specific development finance institutions like the World Bank, the European Investment Bank, they may require that you get a letter showing interest from the bank in financing the project before they can provide technical assistance or a grant for the preparation. And finally, as you're looking at a PPF, there's a range of the types of assistance and the scale of support that each can provide. Some will provide technical assistance where they have experts that can come and advise you, and it's a lighter touch, less involved engagement. Others will provide embedded advisors for multiple years or can provide grants to conduct significant technical studies. And so then the duration of support can also vary widely, as well as the timeline between applying for support and receiving a decision. Sometimes it can be several weeks, sometimes it can be several months. And so understanding how quickly the facility moves and if that aligns with the needs of your project is also important. And finally, some PPFs have an application window that's always open and receiving applications. We're going to hear more about the City Climate Finance Gap Fund later today, and that's one that has a rolling window that's always open for applications. Others will have a specific window with a deadline. Often those will have a specific theme. So there might be a window open for a month or two to apply for projects in a specific sector or in a specific country. So each PPF is unique, but most consider similar projects and applicant characteristics. And so understanding how your projects fits so that you can have a successful application is important. I want to close by highlighting several of the PPFs that support cities in the UN ESCWA member state cities. So each of these does have a different focus on sector, on project size, has a different support offer. But I just highlighted here the different stages that they work at. And you can see some of them are focused on later stage feasibility and structuring. Some are focused on just the earlier stage of concept or pre-feasibility. And some can support a project through all four of these main stages of preparation. In order to get the details to understand which of these might be a good fit for your project, we have a resource called the Project Preparation Resource Directory. That's a free online tool that allows you to put in your country, your project's sector, the project stage, and filter a list of PPFs. So this is a global resource, but when you put in your country, it'll narrow it down to only those that work in that country, then that sector and that project stage. And if you click on each one, there's some more information and a link to their website where you can find the detailed eligibility criteria. You can scan the QR code on the screen to find that link, or when we send out the slides after today, you'll find a link in this slide in the underlined headline. So, and this is really where you can find how the detailed information to get to the right PPF for a specific project. I think with that, I will be happy to hand it back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, John Michael, for this really helpful overview on what exactly are PPFs, what are the ones that are relevant to the region where ESCWA and Habitat works together on this project, and even providing tools that our attendees can use to be able to figure out what PPFs work for them. And to John Michael's point, we will be sharing all of the slides at the end of the webinar. So those will go out to you and you'll be able to access these resources. I will now be turning to Helena Montero to speak specifically about the Global Covenant of Mayor Gap Fund partnership. She is their global engagement lead, overseeing external relations and partnerships to help cities access Gap Fund technical support. She's an urban resilience expert with a track record of managing projects with local governments and international organizations in Europe and Latin America. Previously, she led the Making Cities Resilient 2030 initiative in Europe and Central Asia for the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, and played a key role as the Associate Director of 100 Resilient Cities. Before that, she headed the Foreign Affairs Office for the government of the state of Sao Paulo in Brazil, and she holds a master's degree in city design and social science from the London School of Economics and Political Science, and a bachelor's degree in international relations from the University of Sao Paulo. Thank you very much, Helena. Happy to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to see some of like familiar faces and partners that we work together. I'm going to share my screen. I hope it's not too confusing because I made the decision to have the slides in Arabic and speak in English. I don't speak any Arabic. So I hope that what I'm speaking is making sense to the slide that I'm showing, but please let me know. Like I said, it's a real pleasure. I really want to thank ESCWA, UN ESCWA, and UN Habitat for this invitation and this opportunity to share a little bit of our work. And we want this session to be very interactive. So I would love for the participants to share on the chat where they're coming from, which cities they are representing, what organizations are here, so that we can get to know a little bit about each other. So I don't think that I need to do any convincing here about the critical role that cities play in addressing climate change. Like Hussein and Sarah touched on this, but what I want to say is that cities might be a big part of the challenge, but they are also a key part of the solutions. Cities responsible for more than 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions, and also nearly 70% of the world in urban areas by 2050. We know that we need to work with cities, and that rapid urbanization presents a significant risk to climate. We know that when growth is unplanned, it can increase. It can increase emissions, heighten vulnerabilities. But here I want to show how cities that when planned, when supported with climate action, can be the support for a healthier planet. So smart green cities can reduce emissions by up to also 70%, and slash energy use by 90%, cool urban areas by 2%, 2 to 8 degrees. So this is how we want to focus today on the opportunity that cities have in tackling climate change. But when we talk about climate finance, the scale of investment needed is vast. So we need at least 90 trillion by 2030. And a lot of this is on project preparation. There is a whole 4.5 trillion market for project preparation. And Joe Michael can correct me. This is data from CCFLA. And we know that typically the project preparation, especially the early stages one, is up to 3 to 5% of the total cost of the project. And in emerging markets, on the region that we are talking about here today, it can climb to up to 10%. So, and this is also the stage of project preparation that is left for cities to fund by themselves. Most of the traditional financing facilities focus on the later stages of project development. So we have this critical gap in early stage support. By investing in early stage preparation, we can really increase the chances of success and unlock further climate finance, access to further climate finance. So cities have the potential, and this is why the GAP Fund can be a really game changer, because it's a technical assistance that is created to support cities in the very early stages of climate project preparation. The idea with the GAP Fund is that it can act as a bridge between local governments and all the climate finance opportunities, ensuring that cities will have access to this support to turn their ideas into something that is a structured, robust, viable, bankable project. This is an initiative that is implemented by the World Bank and the European Investment Bank with technical support from GIZ. It benefits from we can never do anything alone. It always takes a village. So the GAP Fund has the support of GCOM, C40, CCFLA, ICLEI, but is only possible due to the generous contributions of the governments of Germany and Luxembourg. The fund supports municipalities in developing comprehensive climate strategies and action plans, and also comprehensive climate actions and strategies and action plans, and help them also prioritize these investments, considering the impact, considering the pre-viability, and so on. It assists mostly in solid project concepts, on like turning that idea into something that is let's say, a project that can be led, that the mayor can put under its arm and then go and talk to a potential funder about it, because now we know, after the support from the GAP Fund, we know that this project will take this much time to take place, it will cost this much, it will have this impact, and so on. So it really helps cities to then access further support and further climate finance. A little bit about the partnership between the Global Covenant of Mayors and the City Climate Finance Gap Fund. So Shaden and I, present here as well, my colleague, we are based at GCOM, and we have partnered with the Gap Fund to raise awareness about the support that the Gap Fund provides, but also to help cities navigate the application process. So we're here to work alongside you, helping you shape your ideas. So that's why we have some space later today, to hear your ideas, hear what you're thinking about doing in your city, what are your challenges, and see if the Gap Fund could be a good fit to support you. So our goal here is very simple, is to make sure that cities have the support that they need to turn their ambitions into action, and also unlock access to the finance needed to implement this resilient future. What are the sectors that you can apply to the GAP Fund? When we're thinking about climate action, we want you to think about projects that are multi-sector, that are transformation, that really have an ambition to transform the city. But we can think about projects in mobility, in energy efficiency, renewable energies, in waste management, water management, green infrastructure. We can also think about the development of climate strategies, so greenhouse gas emission assessments, and we also want to see the city, when the GAP Fund leaves the city, with more capacity building for municipal teams. Another core element of the program, the fund, is the support in, like I said, prioritizing and assessing potential investments. So enabling the municipalities to identify the most promising opportunities within the climate action plans, and also provide some guidance on the financial mechanisms and the investment facilitation. So we do a little bit of matchmaking with potential further support on feasibility and financing as well. Who can apply to the GAP Fund? So this is a technical assistance that is eligible for all the countries on the OECD DAC list of recipient list. The project needs to be in urban areas. So if it's a project that is more connected to a rural area, it should be adjacent or have an impact on an urban area. So we work with cities. That's where it's our focus on the City Climate Finance Gap Fund. We can have projects on both mitigation and climate adaptation. So I think that the cities here working with the fund on adaptation probably will find opportunities to work with the GAP Fund as well on adaptation. And one of the key requirements is that this project is owned by the local government. There is a commitment from the local government to implement this project. We know that cities are always working with different organizations, with different partners, with the UN system. For instance, the Global Covenant of Mayors supports a lot of cities in preparing their climate action plans, but the project needs to sit at the local government, or at least at the regional government. Sometimes we're talking about governorates or regional states and so on. There are no restrictions on city size, but projects really need to demonstrate that significant potential for climate impact. So the support offered covers the initial phases of the project preparation, including planning, concept development, and pre-feasibility studies. And for each project that we receive an application, The GAP Fund will work with the city to develop a scope of work, to develop the terms of reference if we need to hire any consultants, and really define what needs to happen for that project to move forward. So even if you're not clear of the kind of request that you need, the kind of support that you need right now, you can work with us, and we will help you with the application process. And then it will be clear once the project is eligible, there will be a conversation to work on the scope of work. A little bit like I said on the eligible sectors. In here, I want you to think and be very ambitious. Sometimes we think, oh, if my project is too expensive, it will be harder to get funding. It's actually the opposite. We want to see projects with potential for greater impact and for investment potential as well. So thinking about sustainable transport, urban mobility. So let's say you want to change your bus fleets into electric buses. Energy efficiency and renewable energy, so including building retrofits, public lighting upgrades, district heating, cooling systems. When we think about waste management, solutions focused on circular economy, we will see a couple of examples as well, emissions reduction, water supply, water waste. This is a very important theme in the region that we're talking today. Green and blue infrastructure, nature-based solutions, rain gardens, expanded urban green areas, climate adaptation, like I said, building resilience, disaster risk reduction as well. Affordable housing, as long as it has an element of energy efficiency in residence or commercial buildings. We have a lot of, at least in Central Asia, we're working a lot on retrofitting of buildings with energy efficiency. But most of all, I want you to think about how you can integrate these sectors and create a project that is an integrated urban investment program. So using a multi-sectoral approach for the GAP Fund. I want to give you a couple of examples, but maybe move a little bit faster because we want to hear from Greater Amman. But we are working in Beirut, Greater Beirut Green Urban Recovery and Development Strategy in Lebanon. The GAP Fund is supporting the region in the early stage development of a comprehensive urban recovery and development strategy. So this initiative is designed to promote low carbon, climate resilient urban development through a very cross-sectorial approach shaped by multi-stakeholder collaboration and consultation. So it's a urban recovery plan, a strategy, but the GAP Fund is working with the city and different actors to prioritize projects on this recovery plan. This strategy is aimed at guiding the city's green recovery following recent economic and social shocks, and so on. The focus is on green urban infrastructure, sustainable mobility, climate adaptation, and also fostering inclusive and resilient urban renewal. Like I said, I think the challenge brings an opportunity. If there is reconstruction that needs to take place, we can do this in a resilient and smart way. The type of support that the GAP Fund is providing for Greater Beirut is on the identification, prioritization, and scoping of pilot projects across key urban sectors. And these projects will act as catalysts for recovery and long-term development. These efforts will lay the foundation for future financing, ensuring this strategy leads to tangible climate and development outcomes, we hope. We have another project in Morocco that I want to share with you. The Zenata project is a solar energy for a sustainable future, is an integrated urban development in the outskirts of Casablanca. It is designed to accommodate 300,000 residents and create over 100,000 jobs by 2040. So this is what I'm saying about an ambitious project presenting an opportunity to establish a new sustainable model in green leaf city. So this is part of we're working with integrating solar energy production. This initiative will serve as a pilot for the national grid as well. And what the GAP Fund is doing is supporting the technical and financial pre-feasibility assessments of the different solar energy solutions that is going to be applied in this region. The early stage assistance is also helping to inform investment decisions, ensuring that we have an efficient, scalable photovoltaic infrastructure that aligns with Morocco's broader clean energy transition. And lastly, I want to share with you an example of an aggregated approach. Sometimes the project in one city might be too small or might not have the robustness that is needed to apply for the GAP Fund. So, and also like we see the same challenges over and over in different cities. Sometimes there is a national policy that requires cities to work on like a waste management plan or an adaptation plan or something like this. So what we're trying to do as well is scale up these challenges and these opportunities with a joint approach. Here you can see the GAP Fund supporting cities in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania in this joint initiative focused on circular economy and solid waste management. So the project brings together the cities of Makindye, Nansana, Kibre, Entebbe, and Kampala with the goal of supporting organic waste recovery and identifying practical solutions to extract value from waste wherever possible. This is, I think that is important. We wanted to show this example because of this aggregated approach and invite you to share your challenges and share your projects and see if there are similarities between among these projects so that we can maybe even pair cities together, especially within the same country, and do a joint application, because this increases the chances to work with the GAP Fund as this is a more robust, bigger project with larger impact as well. I'm not going to talk much about the application process. It's a very simple one. Submissions, like Joe Michael mentioned, are submitted on a rolling basis. But before you think about submitting an expression of interest, I would suggest that you share your idea with the GCON GAP Fund team, with Shaden, with myself, so that we can help you make it stronger, increase the narrative, and really make sure that the application is eligible, it's well presented, it's well pitched. So we were going to work on the potential for handover, like if there is any funding coming after, if it's aligned with local or national policies, if we can pair with other cities and enhance that application. So we're here to help you. I'm going to stop here and we will hear from Shaden later on the application process. Over to you, Sarah. Thank you so much. I'm open to questions.
Thank you so much, Helena, for this excellent overview of how the GAP Fund works, and also providing insights on different ways to think through projects. For example, this last example you gave of several cities working together on a similar initiative. That's really interesting, and I think it helps to encourage people to think outside of the box from what they may have typically conceived for a single climate finance related project at the city level. And thank you for the great examples from the region as well. I'm excited to see that we have so many diverse attendees here from cities from across the region. That's great. So the way we're going to proceed is right now we have time for some Q&A for John, Michael, and Elena. You can also come back to them again at one of the Q&As later on in the session as well. But if you have any immediate questions on PPFs, on the PPFs that are working in the region, on the GAP Fund, then this is one opportunity to ask those questions. Then we're going to follow up with a specific case from Amman in Jordan. After that, we'll come back to Shaden to share more details on how you can put together an expression of interest specifically for the GAP Fund. And then we're really hoping to have your engagement for the last part of the session, which is going to be an interactive pitching session. So you can share just your initial thoughts about any ideas you have for projects at the city level. And we have experts here who can give you great feedback on how you can turn those ideas into actual project proposals. So did we have any, I'm checking, I saw we have one question in the chat on financing any projects. Has the GAP Fund financed any projects related to urban greening? And Shannon types a response. I don't know if you guys wanted to provide any additional information on that, or if anything immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, urban greening.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I can take this one. Urban greening is a very important sector for the GAP Fund, and we have several examples of urban greening in different countries. I have one in my mind that is the cities of Rio de Janeiro and Campinas. This is very close to my heart. I am from Brazil, where we created the GAP Fund supported the city of Campinas at the same time as supporting the city of Rio. So again, an aggregated approach in mapping and developing the plan for different linear parks. And this mapping and this assessment for the linear parks also generated a whole manual on nature-based solutions and how you can use nature-based solutions to increase permeability of the soil, so working on flood management, but also cooling spaces, especially in Rio with rain gardens and vertical gardens as well. So even this deliverable, this end product of the collaboration is something that is helping other cities because they also can have access to this nature-based solution manual. It's in Portuguese. I can share if needed, but this is a good example. And then now the cities are, with the support from the GAP Fund, they now have mapped and assessed, and they are working on the implementation of these two very green areas that are cutting the cities in the area as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Helena. I see we have another question that pops up in the Q&A. I'm going to assume this actually doesn't come from Melissa, but because she gave the access code in Zoom, we have a bit of a technical error. But the question is, shall the project be in progress and approved by the local government, or can we apply with a promising idea? John, Michael, Elena, did you have any? And Shannon, feel free to jump in. We'll introduce your session later, but please, if you any insights, you're welcome as well.
The GAP Fund comes at this stage of the idea, turning your ideas into actionable projects. So obviously you want to have this idea agreed within the municipality. Sometimes you need to discuss with the environment department, with the treasury or the finance, but it has to be an idea that is endorsed by the mayor. But we will help. That's exactly what the GAP Fund does. It will help you turn this idea into something that has all the data that is needed to be seen as a project by other project preparation facilities. We would always welcome ideas that are aligned with national priorities, that are aligned with different international guidelines as well. But it is at the very early stage. So yes, you can share your wishful thinking with us, and we will help you turn it to a project.
Thanks, Helena. I don't know, did you want to add something, John Michael?
Yeah, so I'll say as I mentioned earlier, each PPF has different criteria. One common thing is to look to see, is this project identified in a climate action plan, a territorial plan, the city's strategy, to know that there's longer-term political support for the project. Because one of the risks that a PPF is going to be concerned about is if this is a project that doesn't have support from the local government, then they may do the work to do the technical studies, and then the project doesn't move forward. So being able to show either from a planning process or from the endorsement of the mayor or even endorsement from a national ministry that there's broader backing for the project and they can be confident that the project will continue to move forward if they do provide the technical assistance.
Very important. Thank you, John Michael. We had another question in the chat. This may be the last one we get to in this round of Q&A, asking how can the GAP Fund help in combating non-revenue water reduction in cities? I don't know if you have any examples of that, or just any initial insights. And if this is an idea that you have on your mind to the individual who asked that question, please keep it in mind when we have the pitching session later, and you can share any initial thoughts you have on a project and receive more detailed feedback. But please, Helena and John Michael, Shannon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know if I understand the question. What do you mean by non-revenue water reduction?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I definitely know of cases where non-revenue water, which is projects that reduce the water loss in the pipes from the water treatment to an end user that pays a tariff. There are PPFs that support those projects. I think that's a kind of project that can be a very strong candidate because it combines the environmental impact of water efficiency, the development impact of improving water services, and the financial impact where it supports the finances and the revenue of the city or the water utility. So depending on the country that you're located in, the African Water Facility supports projects similar to that for African states. It's only countries that are members of the African Development Bank are eligible. But there are others. I believe the GAP Fund may have done some work on water projects. I'm not certain on that. The city's investment facility from UN Habitat is another one for more mature projects. But definitely if you go to that's the type of project that can definitely get support. And if you go to the directory, you can put in the water, sanitation, and waste sector, put in your country, and then see what facilities might be able to provide some support there.
Thank you, John Michael. And yes, just to qualify or to clarify, this is water that's basically lost. It could be through poor infrastructure. It's water that's not making it to the consumer and therefore is not billable and not used.
Exactly.
Or maybe is used but not billable. So just any projects in that space. If you guys had any further thoughts, or we'll move on to the next portion and we can revisit this topic later on as well. So I see that we have engineer Nazreen Daoud online, and she will be coming in for the next portion of the session, which is focused on providing an actual city case study. Engineer Daoud is a senior architect with 25 years of experience in the fields of design, technical coordination, strategic planning, project management, and climate change and resilience. She is the manager of sustainable development and the Amman Resilience Unit, holding the responsibility of Amman Climate Change Green City and Resilience Portfolio. She previously held the position of the acting chief resilience officer. She joined the Greater Amman municipality in 1999, where she held responsibilities for major project strategies and plans, and she holds a bachelor's in engineering degree in architectural design. It's my pleasure to welcome you, Engineer Daoud. Thank you.
It's my pleasure to be here. Just sharing my screen. So I will أنا رح أحكي بالعربي عن تجربة أمانة عمان في الحصول على الجاب فند. رح أبلش بمقدمة بسيطة عن مدينة عمان. عمان هي عاصمة المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية، هي المركز الاقتصادي والاجتماعي والسياسي لمدينة عمان، بعد تاريخها لأكثر من 8000 سنة قبل الميلاد، بمساحة 800 كيلو متر مربع. وعدد سكان أكثر من 4.5 مليون، اللي هم بشكلوا أكثر من 42% من سكان الأردن. ونتيجة تمركز السكان في مدينة عمان، 60% من إجمالي الناتج الوطني ينتج في مدينة عمان، 55% من فرص العمل هي متوفرة في مدينة عمان، 80% من إجمالي المؤسسات الحكومية والرأسمالية في مدينة عمان. والأردن بشكل عام هو من أفقر الدول بالمياه، 98% من السكان بيعانوا من الفقر المياه خلال أشهر الجفاف سنويا. مدينة عمان بتواجه العديد من التحديات، سواء على مستوى المدينة أو على مستوى المؤسسة. احنا واحدة من أفقر المدن والدول بالموارد الطبيعية، خاصة في الطاقة والمياه، وبنعتمد على الواردات. ومع زيادة عدد السكان والتدفق المستمر للاجئين بصير زيادة الطلب على الموارد، في تحضر سريع ونمو أفقي للمدينة. كمان هذا بسبب ضغط على البنية التحتية وقدرتها على تقديم الخدمات البلدية. كمان احنا بنواجه العديد من التحديات المتعلقة بالنقل بسبب عدم وجود نظام كافي للنقل العام. احنا جديد يعني بلشنا نشتغل على خطط النقل العام، ونفذنا مشروع الباص سريع التردد، بالإضافة لأكبر التحديات اللي هي التغير المناخي. مع إنه إحنا كبلد مش مؤثرين في التغير المناخي، لكن تأثيره واضح، سواء بالجفاف، بالفيضانات السطحية، أو موجات الحر اللي بتمر على المدينة. كمؤسسة عندنا الاستثمار صعب في مدينة عمان بسبب عدم الاستقرار السياسي في المنطقة. كمان التمويل مش دايما متوفر وصعب الوصول له. عدم كفاية تنسيق بين مقدمي الخدمات. كمان ما في علاقة قوية بين القطاعين العام والخاص، اللي هم وجودهم ضروري في تنفيذ بعض المشاريع. واحد من أكبر التحديات هي إدارة البيانات وتحليلها. يعني في بيانات موجودة، بيانات غير موجودة على المستوى الوطني، لكن كل هذا تحدي بكافة مدن الأردن بصراحة. بس كمؤسسة عندنا مجموعة نقاط قوة بتساعدنا على تحقيق أهدافنا. خططنا مبنية على البيانات العلمية والحقيقية لمدينة عمان. عندنا التزام عالي من الإدارات المؤسسة. كمان عندنا قانون خاص بأمانة عمان بيعطيها استقلال إداري ومالي عن باقي المؤسسات. خططنا كلها مدمجة ضمن استراتيجية أمانة عمان المرتبطة بالموازنة، واللي بتتحدث كل 4 سنوات. كمان هيكلنا التنظيمي مناسب لتنفيذ الاستراتيجيات والإجراءات، كل واحد عارف شغله، والمسؤوليات واضحة. كمان تم إنشاء وحدة التنمية المستدامة اللي أنا بديرها حاليا، لإدارة ملف الاستدامة والتغير المناخي، اللي هو بيقطع كافة المهام والمسؤوليات المطلوبة من أمانة عمان. اشتغلنا على مدى الفترة الماضية على عدة خطط. بدأنا طبعا بالتوافق مع المستوى الوطني باستراتيجية منع عمان ب 2017، لاحقا لانضمام مدينة عمان لشبكة 100 مدينة مرنة. بناء عليه اشتغلنا بال 2019 خطة التغير المناخي الأولى لمدينة عمان. كانت هاي الخطة الأولى في المنطقة حتى، بهدف طموح أنه نوصل للحياد الكربوني ب 2050. خلال هذه الفترات اشتغلنا أكثر من خطة ومن تقرير. خطة عمان مدينة خضراء، الأيربان بروفايل لمدينة عمان بالتعاون مع اليو هابيتات، تقرير الاستعراض الطوعي بالتعاون مع مؤسسات مختلفة من الأمم المتحدة، الأسكوا واليو هابيتات، استراتيجيتنا الخاصة بأمانة عمان المرتبطة بالموازنة زي ما حكيت قبل. ووزارة البيئة أطلقت السياسة الوطنية للتغير المناخي ب 2023. بناء عليه حدثنا خطتنا للتغير المناخي ليكون في توازن بين التكيف والتخفيف من آثار التغير المناخي. لما صار عندنا هاي مجموعة الخطط، عملنا مجموعة خطوات لنتأكد من إنه بقدرتنا كمؤسسة على تنفيذ هاي الخطط. أولها مؤسسة العمل. زي ما حكيت، الهيكل التنظيمي لأمانة عمان ساعدنا إنه كل واحد عارف مسؤولياته. خطتنا مدمجة بعملياتنا وبشغلنا اليومي في أمانة عمان. لو وصلنا للتنفيذ، حاولنا نشوف من وين نقدر نحصل على مصادر تمويل مختلفة بالجهات الداعمة وصناديق التمويل. أشركنا الجهات ذات العلاقة، سواء من مؤسسات الوطنية، وزارة البيئة، وزارة التخطيط، وزارة النقل. كلهم هم كانوا شركاء معنا في إعداد خططنا وأهدافنا. كمان الجهات الغير الحكومية، ال NGOs، المؤسسات المجتمع المدني، القطاع الخاص، الجامعات كمان كانوا هم جزء من خطتنا لإشراكهم في إدماج العمل المناخي في خططنا. وتأكدنا إنه كل شغلنا مرتبط مع بعض بهدف واضح وصريح. بناء عليه، لما بصراحة كنا بدنا ننفذ هاي المشاريع وهاي الخطط، حسينا إنه إحنا في منطقة بدنا طريقة نربط هاي الخطط ونحدد أولوياتنا. فلجأنا للجاب فند، زي ما شرحت هيلينا. هو بيقدم لنا مساعدة تقنية وببني قدراتنا لدعم خططنا واستثمار في خططنا بطريقة صحيحة. فبناء عليه قدمنا للفند، وتأكدنا إنه إحنا مؤهلين للحصول على التمويل. المشروع اللي بدنا نقدمه فعليا مؤهل وبحقق كل الشروط المطلوبة عشان نتأكد إنه نحصل على التمويل. إيش طبيعة المشروع، السيكتور اللي بيتبعه، من القطاع المشمول بالدعم، سواء حلول مبنية على الطبيعة، مناطق خضراء، تنقل حضري، كفاءة طاقة. كل هذا تأكدنا إنه إحنا المشروع هو متوافق مع شروط الدعم المقدم. لما حصلنا تأكدنا إنه حصلنا على الدعم، بلشنا بمرحلة التنفيذ. تأكدنا أنه بإشراك جميع الجهات والقطاعات ذات العلاقة، سواء على المستوى المؤسسي، القطاعات الداخلية بالمؤسسة، قطاع الأشغال، قطاع التخطيط، قطاع البيئة، قطاع التنمية المجتمعية، والقطاع المالي والإداري. كلهم كانوا جزء من العمل اللي انشغل. تأكدنا إنه كمان، وهاي نقطة كتير مهمة، إنه إحنا لما نشتغل مع الجهة الداعمة، الكونسلتنت اللي حيشتغل معنا، إنه نشتغل معهم بشفافية ووضوح. ما في داعي إنه نجمل صراحة شغلنا. كان لازم نكون صريحين وواضحين الدعم اللي إحنا بنحتاجه كمؤسسة. تأكدنا كمان إنه بكل البروسيس هذا المشروع إنه يكون في تعلم مستمر، capacity building، تبادل خبرات. يعني منهجيات عمل جديدة إحنا ما اشتغلناها. وفعليا هذا المشروع كان ناجح جدا، لأنه لأول مرة يعني إحنا كل قطاعات أمانة عمان لما كانوا يجوا اللي نفذوا المشروع من الجاب فند اللي هم الورلد بانك مع مجموعة كونسلتنتس مستشارين معاهم، ما كانوا يجوا بس عندي أو عند نائب للتخطيط أو عند مدير المدينة، لا كنا نرتب زياراتهم إنه كل الأشخاص ذوي العلاقة قاعدين مع بعض، بيناقشوا أولوياتنا، بيناقشوا تحدياتنا، بيناقشوا الوضع الحالي الفعلي، شو طبيعة البيانات المتوفرة، شو طبيعة البيانات اللي بنحتاجها، مين من الشركاء مدينة عمان ضروري يكون معنا في النقاش اللي بيتم للحصول على أفضل النتائج. اشتغلنا ب3 مراحل. المرحلة الأولى اللي هو التشخيص السريع، يعني حطينا الكونسبت، المشاريع المطلوبة إدماجها، الخطط القائمة اللي في العمل المناخي وبالتحول المستدام، حددنا مجالات العمل. انتقلنا للمرحلة الثانية اللي هو دخلنا بتشخيص معمق أكثر. كان أصحاب العلاقة دخلوا معنا في اقتراح الحلول، في تحديد أولوياتنا من الخطط اللي موجودة، خطة المنع، خطة التغير المناخي، خطة عمان خضراء، الاسسمنت اللي تمت بالتقرير الاستعراض الطوعي. كل هذا كانوا انبوت في هاي المرحلة، وبناء عليه حددنا ايش الفرص الاستثمارية اللي بتحتاجها مدينة عمان. السيناريوهات، اشتغلنا على 3 سيناريوهات: سيناريو البلاند اللي هو هاي خططنا وين رح توصلنا، سيناريو الطموح اللي يعني بيفوق قدراتنا الحالية لكن لازم نشتغل عليه، والسيناريو الممتد اللي هو كمان بيشمل مبادرات يتم تنفيذها من مؤسسات أخرى أو بالتعاون مع مؤسسات أخرى لو وصلنا لمرحلة التنفيذ، ونحط خطة تشغيلية للتقرير اللي تم إنتاجه بناء على هذا التعاون. فإحنا حطينا بهذا التقرير اللي هو عمان المستقبل المسار اللي بده نشتغل عليه في مدينة عمان للوصول لمدينة أكثر ذكاء وأكثر اخضرارا وأكثر نبضا بالحياة. هيك كانت الكونسبت، المسار اللي مشينا عليه. حطينا القيود اللي ممكن تأثر علينا كمؤسسة كمدينة، سواء النمو السكاني أو عدم كفاية توزيع الخدمات الحضرية أو محدودية سبل الوصول للأسواق والبطالة، كلياتها تحددت. فطلعنا بتقرير إنه إحنا هلأ على مفترق طرق، يعني لازم إنه نوجه التنمية داخل مدينة عمان بشكل يخدم ويحقق أهدافها. هذا التقرير هو موجود أونلاين، اشتمل على أسسمنت حقيقي للمؤسسة ولا مدينة عمان، اشتمل على سيناريوهات في عدة مسارات، بالتخطيط، بالنقل، بإدارة النفايات، بإدارة المياه، بالمباني والطاقة. فتحدد أولوياتنا في مدينة عمان من هون ل2050 إيش اللي لازم إحنا نشتغله. اقترح الجهة الداعمة من خلال هذا المشروع اللجوء إلى طرق جديدة للحصول على التمويل. إحنا عندنا على سبيل المثال أراضي تعد ملكيتها لأمانة عمان، فاقترحوا علينا إنه كيف نعظم القيمة لهذه قطع الأراضي وكيف نشتغل بأسلوب حديث للتخطيط الحضري. فعلى سبيل هذا حكيته اللي هم ال3 استراتيجيات اللي راح نشتغل عليها، اللي هم تحسين التخطيط المكاني، تحديد أولويات الإصلاح والاستثمارات، والاستفادة من الأصول اللي تملكها أمانة عمان. فعلى سبيل المثال واحد من اللي فعليا اشتغلنا عليه حاليا قيد التنفيذ من الريكومنديشنز اللي موجودة بهذا التقرير اللي هو في قطاع التخطيط. اقترح علينا انه لازم نشتغل على وضع تشريع جديد. هذا كان بالمسار الثالث، يعني اللي هو احنا هذا الامبيشس اللي اكثر اشي طموح ممكن نشتغل عليه كمؤسسة في مدينة عمان. فإحنا حاليا عم نشتغل على إعداد نظام التخطيط الخاص في مدينة عمان. تم الانتهاء من النسخة الأولوية بدعم من اليو ان هابيتات كمان، وراجعناها داخليا كمؤسسة. اشتغلنا مع شبكة السيفورتي للتأكد من إدماج العمل المناخي ضمن النظام الجديد. تم تعميم النسخة الأولوية على الشركاء للمراجعة وزودونا بملاحظاتهم، وهلأ إحنا بالمراجعة القانونية النهائية. هذا لأول مرة بتصير في الأردن إنه يكون مدينة إلها نظام تخطيط مستقل عن القانون الوطني. لكن إحنا عندنا كان القوة إنه إحنا نصدر هذا القانون، لأنه عندنا قانوننا الخاص رقم 18 لمدينة عمان، فأعطانا الصلاحية إنه إحنا نصدر نظامنا التخطيط. وهذا اللي بهذا التقرير، تقرير عمان المستقبل، هو اللي فتح عينينا يعني بصراحة على طرق تمويل جديدة. فهذا بالملخص كل البروسيس اللي صار، كيف حصلنا على تمويل الجاب فند، وكيف استفدنا منه كمدينة، وكيف هلأ إحنا في مرحلة التنفيذ. وشكرا جزيلا سارة.
Thank you so much, Engineer Daud, for the excellent presentation on how you've worked together with the GAP Fund to create this city transformation strategy for the city of Amman. We now have time for some more Q&A. Let's see. Do we have any questions in the chat or in the Q&A? I don't see any specific questions. Do we have any questions from the attendees? I don't know if Faden or Helena, you perhaps wanted to reflect on your experience working together with Engineer Daud in the case of Amman, if either of you worked directly with her on this, or you wanted to share any additional thoughts.
I just want to comment
Sure.
a little bit on the Amman case. And I think that Amman is a great case because it shows how the city has managed to take advantage of the relationship with different organizations to support one project. So Amman becoming a resilient cities with the 100 resilient cities program has leveraged their knowledge on like resilience and climate action planning, and then from that strategy, from the resilience strategy, we extracted an idea that will go to the GAP fund, and then now the city's in a better position to receive support from different organizations again. So I think that I am an internationalist. I don't know if we say this, but I think that having a city that is attuned to these different international organizations, we know that it's a very crowded space. We know that cities are always like being offered different kinds of support, or that sometimes it's not even what they need. But I think that Amman has managed to really take advantage of these different kinds of supports and create a linear process in which every organization was giving the city a little bit more assistance to go on with the project. Yeah, so well done to Engineer Daud.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you for those reflections. Do we have any other? Oh, okay. We do have a question from an attendee. It asks Engineer Dowd, your gap funding project covers only the development of the strategy, or is there any implementation component? So going beyond the strategy, has it moved towards implementation?
Yeah, the support itself was to provide a strategy for us to transform into a more resilient, more green, more smart city. But through this collaboration, we had the chance to actually work with the World Bank on implementation of some of the project, and not only with the World Bank, actually with other entities, with other funding agencies, because the report itself is based on the actual needs. This is what Amman needs. This had led us to have more support from other entities, from other funding agencies. For example, the World Bank support us to prepare a pre-feasibility study for the Amman BRT Phase 2. The GGI they are working with us now on preparing the project for the Green Climate Fund. The UN Habitat support us with the new planning bylaw. So this document was the base on receiving more support for the city of Amman.
Great. Thank you, Engineer Dowd. So it was developing this strategy that really helps you to branch out into other projects and have direct contact with potential financiers for those projects. If we don't have any other questions from the Q&A or from the chat, and I should also say, if there are attendees that would like to ask a question, we do have simultaneous interpretation. So if you'd like to ask your question in Arabic, the English-speaking panelists will be able to have the simultaneous interpretation and be able to respond. So that's an option that's available to you either now or later on. It looks like there's one question in the chat. It says, we're an NGO working in the environment. Is it possible to present our projects for development for cities? This looks like it's a representative or an attendee from the Congo. So maybe, well, I guess John Michael and Helena and Shannon, you all work at the global level. Helena and John Michael, you work at the global level. So I think if you have any feedback on that.
To comment on that. On the so on the GAP Fund, we do accept applications from third parties, from NGOs supporting cities. So, for instance, we have a case in Argentina where the network for Argentinian cities fighting climate change is the applicant on behalf of a group of cities. So this could happen. But we need to have, like I said, that ownership from the cities to implement the project. So if it's an NGO pitching their projects that they think that should be taken by the city, but it's not in agreement, that wouldn't be accepted. We would always encourage the city to apply and be the applicant on the expression of interest. And Shadin will talk a little bit more about that. And mention the support that this project is being developed with the support of either a consultancy or an NGO or the UN system agency. With even in the application process, you can take and mention that, because it is important to mention that the city is being supported by other organizations. But the ownership of the project should be in the city or state government.
Was there any other feedback on that particular question, or should we move ahead? Go ahead, John Michael.
I can just say that I think that is a pretty typical requirement, where if you are an NGO or a private company, it would be important to show that the project is supported and endorsed by the city government. The exception would be maybe with a private company if it's a project, say, to do solar or invest in privately owned buildings. then there may not be that requirement, but that would be sort of a unique case. And in general, you definitely do need to show, if the city is not the implementer and the owner of the project, that it is supporting and promoting the project.
We actually, sorry for the interruption. We actually had some project that was implemented by other institutions, even universities. They asked for a letter of support and to be part of the stakeholders of the project, and we cooperated with them, and a lot of project was implemented through this funding.
Thank you for that very concrete example, Engineer Down. If we don't have any other questions, I think we will move on to the last presentation portion of today's webinar. And for this, I would like to welcome Shadan Al-Galali. She is the Middle East and North Africa City Advisor for the GCOM Gap Fund Partnership. She's an urban resilience and climate finance city advisor supporting cities in the MENA region in particular through the Global Covenant of Mayors and the City Climate Finance Gap Fund, which is a partnership, as you guys already know, implemented by the World Bank, EIB, and GIZ. She collaborates with municipalities to advance climate action, bridge knowledge gaps, and enhance local resilience, helping cities access climate finance and develop sustainable urban strategies. Shadan has a background in urban planning and socio-spatial justice, and she's worked with UN Habitat Egypt, the European Commission funded projects with universities and international city twinning programs. And she brings an interdisciplinary, people-centered approach to urban sustainability and is passionate about designing inclusive, climate-resilient urban solutions while fostering collaboration between cities, institutions, and communities. And I welcome Shadan now to share thoughts on preparing expressions of interest. And then we'll have another opportunity for pitching and Q&A. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Hussein and Sarah and UN Habitat for this opportunity and the webinar. So yes, thank you for the introduction. So I'm Shadan. I'm working with the GCOM Gap Fund Partnership with Helena, as Sarah mentioned, as the city advisor for the Middle East and North Africa. And أنا بس عايزة أقول بسرعة إن أنا هتكلم بالإنجليزي عشان ال expression of interest بالإنجليزي، وأنا في ال presentation دي هشرح ال expression of interest وال details اللي المدن محتاجة تكتبها. بس لو في أي أسئلة بالعربي please feel free to ask anything in Arabic. Okay, so as Helena mentioned, the expression of interest is very simple and it can be accessed through this QR code at the City Climate Finance Gap Fund website or at that link. Helena, can you please go to the other slide? Thank you. So as we said, the expression of interest is very simple. It has only 3 sections. By the way, I'm sorry for my voice because it's a bit lost, but I hope you can understand me well and can hear me well. But so the expression of interest has 3 main sections. The first section is the basic data, which is the applicant information, the city, the population, etc. Very simple data, and it has 4 questions. And then section B is about the key project details, which also has 4 different questions, and some of them are multiple choice questions, sorry. So very easy to fill in. And then the last section, it's about the existing partnerships or engagements that the city already has, which also includes 4 different questions with some multiple questions. Sorry, Helena, can you stay on the first one, please? So Helena already mentioned this, but what's very important for the expression of interest is that it's very specific, and the scope and the project idea and the required technical assistance needed is concise and very specific. So it's important that within the expression of interest, you describe the project idea focusing on the climate impact that it would bring. And to clearly state the problem statement, for example, the climate change challenges that the city is facing or the country is facing, and then to clearly state the technical assistance that the project needs. And I'll go in more detail of what that can look like, or what kind of technical assistance you could require from the GAP Fund as an early stage technical assistance. And also it's very important to explain the social, economic, and environmental impacts that it will bring. So if you have data or studies or a concept note already developed with a consultant, for example, that has provided the impacts of that project, that would make the expression of interest stronger. Also, if you have partnerships or engagements or already mapped potential donors that can be interested to implement that project idea, if they have the bankable project documents or investment-ready project idea, that would make it stronger for the GAP Fund, and they would be more interested to take it on, as they know that more partners are interested in that project. So okay. Sorry, Helena, yes, thank you. So another thing to check, sorry, give me a second. Okay. Another thing to check for your project idea is if it's replicable, so it can be scaled up to different cities, if it is aligned with the local and national policies, as we have discussed on the chat during this webinar. If other cities would be interested to join you in that project idea to become aggregated and benefit more a bigger population, for example. And as I said, if it would bring investment or financing, if you have already an idea of who can bring investment and financing to this project. Because as I said, if you have already mapped who this project could be handed over to for implementation and financing after the technical assistance, it makes it a stronger EOI for the GAP Fund, even though a technical assistance that the GAP Fund can also provide is matchmaking this project ideas with potential financiers and donors to implement. Okay. So now I'll go in detail on the different sections. So the first section is the basic data. So as I said, you provide the title of the proposed activity, the applicant information, the full name, position, etc. And as Helena mentioned, it is suggested that the owner of this expression of interest is from the local government, so that the applicant is someone within the local government, even though sometimes for example, it can be an aggregated project that a national authority like the Ministry of Environment or Ministry of Interior takes on for different cities. And then in that case, the applicant would be someone from the ministry, and that is completely fine. But it should showcase the local ownership for the project. Okay, so and then section B, so the second section is the key project details. And as I said, you mentioned the sector, you have a sector focus. So is the project idea on sustainable urban mobility? Is it on solid waste management, energy efficiency, etc.? And you choose one of those sectors. And then you clearly provide the climate focus, if it's mitigation or low carbon development, if it's adaptation or resilience, or if it's both. And then you provide the details of the specific support needed for that project from the GAP Fund, and always before the pre-feasibility stage or at pre-feasibility stage. So you can choose between climate strategy development and enabling environment, or definition of a project concept, pre-feasibility support, or then you can add your own needs, such as, for example, if you need to develop a business model for a BRT project, for example, such as the Dr. Nesreen, Engineer Nesreen Dawood mentioned for the BRT in Amman, or other support that you might need. And then you have an open-ended question in section B for the project description, which gives you the opportunity to describe the main climate change challenges. What does your city want to do exactly? So more details on the project. What is the project about? What are the co-benefits, the social, environmental, and economic expected benefits of this project idea? And again, what kind of support you need in more details. So I invite you to think about those 4 questions specifically, because I think this is the main this is the winning questions. So if you have the detailed answers to those questions, it will make it a strong EOI. And later we will brainstorm together and do an interactive session. So you could reply to those questions and start thinking what project idea could be priority for your city. And then the third section, as I mentioned, is the existing partnerships and engagements. So here you can share briefly about your involvement with other partners, the project titles that which you have worked on with those organizations, the stages of the project, and the main outcomes, if applicable. And just there's also a last section which is optional, where you can add in more details if you would like, to show the gap fund that it is an idea that is endorsed and supported by the national authorities, for example, how there is a buy-in from national authorities or other partners, or any other specific details that shows the gap fund that there's a strong climate impact. There's many partners that are interested in that project, and that it's aligned with the national priorities and the local climate action plans, for example, or the CCAPs. Okay. So as I told you, there are 5 main questions. So the first one is, what are the priority climate change challenges for your city to be addressed? Or ايه هي التحديات اللي ذات أولوية للمدينة بتاعتكم؟ مثلا ممكن يبقى في climate change challenges زي sorry, I spoke Arabic, I'm so sorry. For example, there could be your city could be facing a climate change challenge of air pollution, for example, or that there is a flood risk. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we're able to hear you.
Yes, great. Sorry. So, for example, that your city is facing air pollution challenges, or it is facing urban heat and extreme weather, for example, such as many cities in the MENA region, actually, or that you're facing water scarcity, droughts, also weak infrastructure, or a lack of urban mobility, and a lack of public transport, for example. So these are some of the climate change challenges that your city can be facing. So you have to mention that and maybe show data of showing why this is a huge problem for your city. And then second, you go into, so what do you do now to fix that problem, or what is your proposed idea? So ايه هو المشروع السبيسيفيك اللي انتوا عاوزين تعملوه عشان to combat climate change challenges اللي انتوا you're mentioning في expression of interest دي. تالت حاجة هو what kind of technical support do you need from the gap fund. فمثلا لو انتوا بتقولوا ان climate change challenge في المدينة بتاعتكم هي air pollution، فممكن يبقى السولوشن بتاعكم ان محتاجين better public transport أو to improve the public transport، مثلا electrified buses. فالتكنيكال سبورت في الحالة دي اللي انتوا محتاجينها هي مثلا البيزنس موديل والكونسبت والامباكت اسسمنتس بتاعت ال BRT او الالكتريك buses اللي انتوا you're proposing as a project to combat the air pollution. وبعدين رابع سؤال هو الكو benefits. how is this benefiting the social, economic and environmental scape, and then the possible engagements as I mentioned. Okay, Helena, can you please go on to the next slide? Okay, I will actually skip this one because I've already mentioned it. Maybe the next one, please. So here I'm giving some specific examples of answers that you could answer. So first, what are the priority climate change challenges? For example, high dependence on fossil fuels, or energy cost is high. Maybe you have electricity outages, such as in Lebanon or in Palestine. It's a huge problem. A third example could be GHG inventory. So 60% of emissions are coming from energy consumptions from buildings, for example. So these are all priority climate change challenges. And then what do you want to do? So what you could say is, according to the strategic plan or the national priorities or the local climate action plan, the city's main goal is to promote low carbon municipal in all buildings up to 2030. So that's the strategic activities needed is to promote energy efficiency in public buildings and install solar PV panels, for example. So this is a specific scope or a project idea that you have. And then what kind of technical support do you need? For example, you could need a cost benefit and energy efficiency analysis for buildings in your city. For example, in Tunisia now we are working on a project idea. Many of the cities, they require cost benefit analysis on for energy efficiency in public buildings and street lighting. So this is something that the GAP Fund can support with. Or maybe you need preliminary design and energy audits, or technical and financial viability for solar energy, or business model analysis, for example. So these are all pre-feasibility stage technical assistance that the GAP Fund can support with. And then for the fourth question, what are the co-benefits of your project? So you could say resource saving, reduction in GHG emissions, employment opportunities, etc., depending on the project idea. And then for the possible engagement, so for this example, we're talking more about energy efficiency. So maybe there's an energy fund at a national government in your country. So, and this would support with implementing this project idea after you have the technical assistance. After you have, for example, the energy audits and the business models, there's an energy fund in your national government that can finance and implement. So this shows the GAP Fund that this is a feasible project, or that there is already a fund available that can implement it. Okay, yes, and then for the next slide, I'm here also giving some more examples for technical support that can be provided for from the GAP Fund for other different sectors. So for urban mobility, for example, you could say.
Sorry to interrupt, Shannon, but just because we're a little bit over time, we're 1:35. So if we could wrap in the next minute or two, that way we give a little bit of time for the actual pitching session. Thank you.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Sarah. So I'll go really quickly. So for example, for urban mobility, you could require policy recommendations to achieve the city's mitigation objectives, or you can require technical feasible analysis, business models, development of concept designs for your urban mobility plans. And because there was a question on greening urban areas or adaptation, so some of the technical assistance that can be provided by the GAP Fund for that specific sector is, for example, policy recommendations for investing in green public spaces, or identification of capital investments in selected green roof infrastructures, or pre-feasibility studies and guidelines for island effect reduction of flooding risk reductions at municipal level. So these are all some examples of technical assistance. And then now we can go ahead with the brainstorming session. So if you can please scan this QR code, and it will take you to a Mentimeter. And then we can brainstorm together on your project ideas and your responses to those 5 questions that I was mentioning. Can everyone access the Mentimeter? Please let me know if you have any problems.
Also, in the meanwhile, it looks like we did, okay, yes, able to access. We did get a couple of questions in the chat that were related to specific types of projects. Let me see if I can get back to some of those now. For instance, okay, well, we have a hand raised from Emilio Neme. for a specific project related idea. So I think Emilio, I'm just gonna unmute it so you're able to share some initial thoughts. Oops. I think Emilio, if you would like to make some comments on a project idea you had, if you could provide maybe a little introduction, you're welcome to do so.
You should unmute yourself.
Okay, let me see if I can, that may not be working. It would, I'll see if I can find it in the chat. So Emilio Neme from Chaka, I have a question regarding future green, sorry, it's getting lost in the chat. A future green project. Let's see. Could be included on the roadmap projects for municipality election. Is it possible to discuss it more? So I think Sharon already provided some examples of greening projects. I don't know if there were others. Let's see. Okay, and we have a number of cities coming in.
Regarding the question for the nature-based solutions, maybe after this webinar, we can send a brochure of the GAP Fund in both Arabic and English, and that includes some project examples and for MBS for those interested.
So Hussein, and it looks like some of the other attendees are asking if they can go back to the QR code because they didn't get to scan it when it was up on the screen.
Hello, Sarah.
Oh, hi. Okay, so we have Emilio there, unmuted. Please feel free to go ahead and share your thoughts on the greening project that you had in mind. I think you said from Baka, right? Or
No,
Chaka?
I'm from the north, from North
Okay.
Lebanon.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you for this interactive session. Really, I enjoyed this discussion. You know, because here during this period, we are preparing for the next municipality election. So it would be a fruitful outcome, especially if any of these ideas will be included in the next roadmap, not necessarily for our city, but of course for the whole country, because you know we are in need with all of these structure, how to formulate and structure all these interesting green projects. So my question is, how far can someone will benefit from these ideas to have for the future concrete follow-up, you know, because sometimes you are lacking for follow-up. We are planning to do these kind of project, but later on we discussed that it will be hard and difficult to follow up, especially with the bureaucratic issues and the permits, and sometimes from the government, sometimes from the legal authority in the region. So is it easy for the future if there is any a planned project regarding green, regarding solar, water, wind farm, or solid waste management? Is it easy to apply for it in terms of official entity like municipality, or every time that we are planning to do a project in the future, we have to go by the bureaucratic papers and permits and applications? Thank you.
Thank you, Emilio. I'm not sure if I entirely got the question, but I think what you're asking is that if you have an idea for a project and you're submitting that idea maybe to a PPF, is it difficult to follow up in terms of monitoring and getting feedback on the project? Or is it more a question about if you're implementing a project in the field, the monitoring and evaluation and getting input on implementation? Is that the question?
I'm trying to raise both issues because, you know, we are talking here about funding. And
Yeah.
when we are talking from a official parties like a municipality, because it is official entity. We are not NGO. We are official governmental entity. So are we going through the official permits networks of the country, or is it easy to get the fund and later on the commissioning and the monitoring with the funding party, like here we are saying the gap fund, for example. If we have a previous project in place, already in place, planned, and all the actions are I mean from the design till the commissioning till the operation in place, ready to implement. Is it necessary to go through the whole network?
So my understanding is that I'm sure the GAP fund has its own requirements in terms of tracking its projects, which you guys can comment on. And there are other monitoring and evaluation plans in place as well, I'm sure at both the city and national levels in the case of Lebanon. And I think the overarching message that we've gotten from the case of the GAP fund is the importance of city ownership and being in compliance with regulations in that regard. Helena and Shadon, did you want to respond?
I want to comment on the continuity of the project. And when Shadon was presenting the expression of interest, even though it's a quite simple expression of interest, it's trying to get a sense from the city and from the project. How does the project idea has emerged? So is it part of any climate action plan? It's part of a resiliency strategy. Have you been working with different partners? And then also on the handover potential, or like if the city has already identified any potential funding for this project, either on its own budget or with the national government program or with an international donor as well. So obviously, this is not a hard criteria, but the GAP Fund will prioritize supporting projects that have this identification of potential funding, or that we know that the GAP Fund knows that this is a project that has a demand by other project preparation facilities or the international donors. But a lot of the projects, and I think that John can comment on this, a lot of the projects, especially after this initial support, this initial planning and design of the project, they go into like the Death Valley, we call, because that's where the feasibility, it's hard for the city to get that kind of support, and then the project sometimes gets stuck. There is a change in government, and the project gets lost. So we're really hoping with the GAP Fund to tie in this project to another partner as soon as possible, so that the project can continue regardless of any changes in the political environment in the city. But yeah, I don't know if you want to comment, John, on the Death Valley.
Yeah, so I think on this specific question, there is always that the official approval process, and a PPF will look to see what those barriers are, what approvals you need as a municipality or that you need to get from the national government. But as the project develops and moves to those later stages, those usually become more concrete. And so maybe when you're applying for the GAP fund support, you're at the concept stage, you haven't elaborated the project. It may not be clear what all the requirements are because you don't know how the project is going to progress. For example, the C40 Cities Finance Facility, which requires the project to have already completed a pre-feasibility study, and then they will support with the feasibility study through to the start of implementation. They will need to check to make sure that the project will be able to secure all the approvals, and having a more defined project at that point, it'll be a bit of a different assessment than what the GAP fund does. So it really does depend on the project, whether it's an NGO, a company, or a municipality that's sponsoring the project, and what the regulatory environment, what the requirements from the government are.
Thank you, John Michael and Helena, for providing some clarifications there. Shannon, I don't know if we wanted to go back to the Mentimeter. Did you guys happen to receive any responses from there that you wanted to follow up on? We also have some questions in the Q&A. For everyone, we're probably not going to have time to get to everything, and so we will share the presentations afterwards, as well as everyone's contact information, so that you can follow up with them directly via email. But Shannon, I'll let you go back to the Mentimeter.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So maybe I can go really quickly and I'll do that in Arabic because the questions of the Mentimeter is in Arabic. اوكي دلوقتي احنا بنسأل ايه مدينتك وبلدك، وجالنا أجوبة كتير من الأردن، من لبنان ومصر. ممكن نروح للسؤال اللي بعد كده. السؤال التاني هو ما هي القطاعات ذات الأولوية لمدينتك؟ فممكن تختار 3 قطاعات في تنقل حضري، urban mobility، كفاءة طاقة energy efficiency، solid waste management، إدارة النفايات الصلبة.
Shadi, seems like we can only pick one. But I think
yes.
if you pick one, that's fine. We can have a sense.
فممكن تختاروا واحدة. عندنا greening urban areas، تخدير المناطق الحضرية، كفاءة الطاقة، تنقل حضري. في 3 بيقولوا greening urban areas. كمان greening urban areas مهم جدا كمان في المنطقة العربية، عشان بسبب الحر والهيت ويفز العالية قوي عندنا. So that makes a lot of sense. اوكي، فاحنا شايفين ان اكتر القطاعات هي إدارة المية greening urban areas. دلوقتي إدارة المية، كفاءة الطاقة، والتنقل الحضري. إدارة المياه والنفايات. Okay, so the highest priority sector right now is the water and wastewater management, which makes a lot of sense. Okay, maybe we can go to the next slide quickly. Okay, so دلوقتي ما هي التحديات الرئيسية في تطوير وتمويل وتنفيذ مشاريع منخفضة الكربون القادرة على التكيف مع المناخ في مدينتك؟ في لا توجد سياسة وطنية طويلة الأجل لتغير المناخ. نقص التنسيق stakeholder engagement is missing. الميزانية المحلية محدودة. The local municipality budgets is limited. نقص الموظفين الفنيين ذو الخبرة في إعداد المشاريع الجاهزة للاستثمار وقابلة التمويل. A lack of resources or technical experts at the local municipality. And just I would like to mention that we as the GCOM Gap Fund partnership, we are happy to support the local municipalities with our expertise, technical expertise, to work on your project ideas and refine it with you, to align it with the national priorities and also prioritize the project ideas. فإحنا كجيكوم جاب فاند بارتنرشيب ممكن نساعدكم، فلو سمحتم ابعتوا لنا في أي وقت لو في أي مشاريع أو أفكار مشاريع عندكم، إحنا ممكن نساعدكم بالمساعدة الفنية من ناحيتنا. Okay, so I think everyone agrees on the lack of stakeholder engagement، نقص التنسيق ما بين المستويات الحكومية الوطنية. Okay, the lack of stakeholder engagement between the local and the national authorities. Okay. And also, by the way, as Engineer Nasreen mentioned, that the GAP Fund, with their technical assistance for Amman City, they supported with this stakeholder engagement between the different authorities. Actually, I don't know, Engineer Nasreen, if you would like to mention anything about this, how the World Bank worked with the different authorities.
رح أجاوب بالعربي. هو كان للتأكد من إنه كل الشركاء موجودين، يعني كلنا ماشيين على نفس الخط، سواء على ناشونال ليفل أو على السيتي ليفل. فإحنا كان في تواصل يعني لقاءات متواصلة واجتماعات وورش عمل مستمرة مع المستوى الوطني، مع الوزارات المختلفة، مع قطاعات بنفس المؤسسة. كمان كان قبل كل النقل بيشتغلوا لحال بدون ما يرجعوا للأربن بلانرز. فكان هاي فرصة إنه فعليا نكون كلنا عم نشتغل على بنفس الهدف، بنفس الأونرشيب، الملكية للشغل نفسه في المدينة.
Thank you so much, Engineer Nasreen. Okay, maybe we can go to the next slide. Okay, now احنا دلوقتي هنستخدم ال5 أسئلة اللي أنا كنت قلتها في العرض بتاعي، اللي هي وأول سؤال منهم التحديات ذات أولوية التي تواجهها مدينتكم فيما يتعلق بتغير المناخ والتي تحتاج إلى المعالجة. the main climate change challenges that your city is facing. So this is an open-ended question, so please feel free to type in as much climate change challenges that need to be addressed. فممكن تكتبوا زي ما انتم عايزين هنا المشاكل اللي بتواجه المدينة بتاعتكم. الفقر الشديد بمصادر المياه، إدارة المياه، نقص المياه، تلوث المياه، ارتفاع درجات الحرارة، flood and deforestation, water management. فهنا ال climate change challenge أو المشكلة أوكي الجفاف وارتفاع درجات الحرارة بالظبط. أوكي، فكلنا شايفين إن ارتفاع درجات الحرارة، نقص المياه، تلوث المياه، دي مشاكل تغير مناخ عندنا قوية جدا في العالم العربي. أنا ممكن أستنى دقيقة كمان.
Shannon, I'm not sure if you're speaking in Arabic or English, because sometimes when you switch a lot between the two, the interpreters are not sure which one to. Okay, yeah, the interpreters have a hard time knowing which one they should switch to.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry because I'm reading the ones in English and in Arabic, so I think I'm confusing everyone. I'm so sorry about that.
No problem. But we should wrap up in like the next minute or so.
Yes, okay. So just to wrap up this slide. So we all agree that the MENA region is facing a lot of water scarcity, flood problems, and solid waste management problems, heat waves. Yes, okay. So thinking about this climate change challenges that the city is facing, now we will go ahead with the project idea that your city might have. I want to speak in Arabic. Can I say it in Arabic also?
Yeah, just try to stay consistent with one, so the interpreters stay on that one.
Okay, great. فدلوقتي المشروع المدينة بتاعتكم انتوا تحبوا ترغبوا ما الذي ترغبون في القيام به، وكيف ستساعد الفكرة أو المشروع في التغلب على هذه التحديات. أساد المية.
It looks like, did we get one response for this? Did you want to highlight that? And then oh, okay, there are a couple more.
إعادة تأهيل شبكات المية بالظبط. nature-based solutions. توفير مشاريع لمباني رياضية مستدامة ومناسبة لذوي الدخل المحدود في الوقت نفسه. تمام بالظبط، دي كلها مشاريع الجاب فاند يقدر يساعد بيها. resilient and efficient water management. الحلول المستدامة لحماية من الفيضانات. nature based solutions. اوكي بالظبط. اوكي احنا دلوقتي بنفكر في nature based solutions والحلول المستدامة للحماية من الفيضانات، إعادة تأهيل شبكات المية، واحنا بنفكر في ده. دلوقتي هنشوف ايه اللي ممكن نسأله للجاب فاند ك early stage assistance او انا هخش دلوقتي على السؤال اللي بعده. ما نوع الدعم الفني الذي تحتاجه من صندوق الجاب فاند؟ ففكروا في المشروع اللي انتوا كتبتوه دلوقتي، ايه ممكن يبقى المساعدة اللي الجاب فاند يساعدكم بيها. Yes, Sarah, please.
Sorry, Shanna, I think we'll actually wrap up. I think our interpreters have closed and Helena has to run as well. So I want to thank all of our panelists for your wonderful wonderful presentations, for sharing your insights, for providing really practical advice on how municipal leaders from across the region and from around the world can better prepare projects and the tools that they have at hand to be able to do so. Again, we'll be sharing all of the presentations with everyone who registered to attend the webinar today. And that will include the contact information of our presenters as well, so that you can reach out to them with your questions and get real practical advice on how we can move from the idea of a project to something that's actually a proposal that can access funding to address some of the really pressing climate challenges that we see in the urban environment in the Arab region and globally. Thank you so much for everything. Hossein, if you'd like to say a final goodbye, and then we'll close.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for your time being with us, and Ramadan Kareem. Have a nice day.
Ramadan Kareem. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.